Good afternoon, children. Welcome to the third segment of lesson number 5, Standard 8. On behalf of SV Union High School and Junior College, I once again welcome for the Standard 8 students. Stay home, stay safe, use masks, keep social distancing, and learn with the help of online teaching. Make sure you have your textbook ready. Take out your textbook, have an attentive mind, willingness to learn and understand, a ruler, a pencil, and you should be prepared to study hard. We have started with the ocean current. We are in the third segment. There are the different ocean currents, that is, the movement of water in the ocean is called as an ocean currents. We also have studied about the directly and indirectly, the factors which influence the ocean current. They are temperature, sun, salinity, winds, Coriolis force, gravity, and the topography of the ocean. We also learn an interesting story about how the spread of the toy spread in the different parts of the ocean, which has helped us to understand the ocean currents, how the water moves. We have earlier studied about these story and how this ocean currents, how these toys move a sprint at a different places with the help of a strange incident. We also have help into understanding what are the cold current and what are the warm current. Mixing of the ocean currents or these water bodies. We call them as an ocean currents. They are broadly classified as an surface currents and the deep currents. The surface current are dominated by wind action and primarily the water moves in the horizontal movement of the water takes place. Whereas in deep currents, they are affected by the density, the temperature and the salinity of water, and we found vertical as well as the horizontal movement of the water. This is a mixing of the cold and the warm current from the poleward margins towards the equator one. Cool water, which is being shown in the blue color, whereas red color shows a warm water. Mixing of again cool and warm water. The warm water is in surface flow, whereas cool is denser, heavier, so we found it at a greater depth. But these lead to the mixing of water. They are being dominated by the force, different forces, and is affected by the rotation of the earth. The most important factor which is being affected because of the ocean currents, they influence the climate. They change the climate of the region. And therefore it is very important to understand that as a certain areas we found the ports are frozen and they are not being used for the in the winters, whereas we found the some areas having a cold currents and develop and the warm current means develop the plankton and fishing for the activity which are being dominated. The Grand Bank in the North America or the Dogger Bank near the European coast are such examples. We also know that the different ecosystem prevails or come into an existence because of this mixing of water current. Near the coast where the cold currents flow, the amount of precipitation is low, and places where the cold and warm currents meet, we found a typical fog which is being developed. This might be currents might be also helpful to carry out the water transport. It is a very interesting, we call it as a conveyor belt. It carries the thing from one place to another place and brings about a change which is unexpected. Now we are going to talk about deep ocean currents. The currents which flows at a greater depth is called as deep ocean currents. These currents are being formed because of the differences in the density rather caused because of the differences in the density rather than the surface wind. The surface currents are being dominated or we are dominated by the surface wind. The density of ocean water depends on two factors, that is the temperature. The cold water always sinks down or near the bottom. The salinity is the amount of salt in the water is more dense and sinks at the bottom. The warm water surface currents move water from the equatorward margins toward the pole where the water gets very cold. The circulation of ocean currents. The warm currents moves towards the from the equatorward margins towards the pole, whereas the cold, which is a denser current, which moves to the poleward areas. These deep ocean currents influences to a greater extent. Water currents beyond the depth of 500 meters are known as deep water currents. These currents are formed due to differences in the temperature and the density of water. As I've already mentioned, the cooler the temperature, the water becomes much more denser. This is a thermohaline circulation. These currents flow till the seabed of the ocean, and they flow like rivers continuously below the surface of the sea. They flow continuously, that is the pink color, which is the warm current, and the blue current. We found from North Pole to the South Pole and from South Pole to the North Pole, the ocean currents which moves from one place to another place. The differences in the temperature of various parts of the ocean is another major reason behind the deep sea currents. The warm water has a lower salinity and the density, and such comes to the surface of the sea. The cold water has a high density, goes down, and the movement causes the deep sea water currents. They are very important. The Greenland and Europe moves from more depth. The water currents which originate from Greenland and the Europe moves at a more depth. This water moves to Antarctica at these depths, and the water from the ocean water keeps occurring. This redistribution takes place about around 500 years to complete. From North Pole to South Pole and South Pole to the North Pole, the water gets mixed and they move from the one place to another place. The rate of movement is very slow, and it almost takes 500 years for the water to get circulated. Why these deep ocean currents are important? Due to the thermohaline is the circulation. Due to the thermohaline circulation, movement of seawater occurs on a large scale. That is the thermohaline, the movement of seawater takes place. Because of this circulation, the ocean water moves from the surface to the bottom and from bottom to the surface. Warm water is transferred to the bottom from the surface, and the nutrient-rich cold water is circulated to the surface. This helps us to develop a different types of ecosystem, and a large number of marine organisms thrives. We know that there is a large amount of diversity which exists below the sea. And the reason because of the existence of these diversity is the mixing of water currents. It is very important for us to remember few. Let us start knowing about it. Do you know there is a circulation of water which takes place, or the ocean current give rise to a certain peculiar features in the ocean? They are called as in Gyrus. Saragus Gyrus Sea in the Atlantic Ocean is such an example. I have got some Gyrus, or you can, there are the different ways to pronounce it, Gyres, Gyrus, or the Gyrus, which is being found in the Pacific Ocean, in the North Pacific, South Pacific, and here it is being found mainly because it is marked by the circular pattern of ocean currents. It does not have the land boundaries and is only surrounded by the ocean currents. The water is still, and this is almost 1,100 kilometer wide and 3,200 kilometer long, which is being found. It is being found in the Pacific. It is found in the Atlantic, and that is North Atlantic, South Atlantic, and even in the Indian Ocean. It is a very important features that one has to understand about. It is important for us to remember certain things. The ocean currents do not flow very close to the coast, and they flow near the lower limit of the continental shelf. Even though the velocity of the ocean current is less, the water is carried them is immense. I said from the North Pole to South Pole, it takes almost 500 years for the water to mix. Under the influence of westerlies, in the mid-latitudes, the ocean currents flow from the west to east, but near the equator, they flow from east to west. This leads to the circular pattern. I think here I have completed the third segment explanation. Now, if you have any doubts, I will explain to you. Um, I'll share the questions with you. The first question, just behind the text question, you're allowed to take the photographs. The second question, the correct or wrong, and I've corrected the statement. The third question, A, B, C, D over here. Make sure if you can draw the diagram, it is always beneficial if you draw the diagram. Question number 3 again, D and E. Then question number 4. Make sure you have to remember this map well. Do not forget the names of the currents. It might come in the exam to show mark name the following. Question number 5. Answer the following question. There are 4 questions, A, B, C, D. D question on the next slide. I have completed the lesson 5, which is divided into 3 segments. If you have liked, please subscribe my channel and write in the comment. I request all of you to subscribe my channel and enjoy learning geography from Tatar Madam. Thank you for listening. Thank you and have a good day. Study well.